Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome you to the broadcast. My name is John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy. Yes, I also go by the business tech guy occasionally, but for real estate purposes, I should go by the real estate tech guy, right? All right. So glad you're joining us. Looks like we are broadcasting loud and clear. Now, keep in mind, it's technology. Weird things can happen. And hopefully, I'm seeing a good signal. So if for some reason we ever begin and it goes blank or it goes offline, I'll come right back on, so it should come right back up. But anyway, thanks for joining. And we're going to get into, we finished up property ownership on our last several sessions. Now, I'm going to give a disclaimer. Today's session will not be as long as, we will not be going for 1 hour. I had just finished a webinar not too long ago and need to run an errand with my wife, and so we're going to have to, we haven't been out of the house for quite a while, so we have to get out of the house and go somewhere. But so tomorrow I have one webinar, Thursday I have 2 webinars, so we'll try to get on, but I may try to keep our sessions a little bit shorter and may try to do those a little more often. But anyway, thanks for joining. Remember, you can ask your questions in the chat box. So if there's a question, just type it in there. As soon as we get done, I'll go out and answer the question. Be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of the videos are being hosted and recorded there, so love for you to do that as well. Well, we're going to get into our second phase of My Real Estate Exam Coach. And in my material, it's chapter 7 where we would start. We actually, in My Real Estate Exam Coach, Property Ownership, are chapters 1, 2, 3, and 6. Part of 4 is also in that as well. 5 is kind of covered in a different area, but chapter 7 is where we pick up with section 2 of My Real Estate Exam Coach, which is set up like the PSI exam as broken down by their categories. So I have pulled up on the screen here for us. This is what the course looks like, the real estate course. So if you're thinking about going to my school, this is actually what it would look like. And I do have, try to turn that, make sure we have the audio off. There we go. And so you will hear my voice speak. You don't have to listen to it. You can turn it off. I know some people, I've had a couple of people that will say, well, I can read faster than you speak. And granted, that may be true, but the Real Estate Commission doesn't want you sitting there clicking your mouse and flying through the course. So just get a coffee, relax, take some notes, and enjoy. I try not to go too slow, but I do cover the learning objectives as right here in in each of the chapters that we go over. Now notice I could not move forward until this actually completed. You always want to let the timer finish and then you can move forward to the next slide. Notice the slide's moving across. Most of you may know this, but this is the review section, so we can actually in the review go as fast as we want. But in the main course, that would be locked. So in this first section, we talk about Uncle Pete. I feel like, because I've been working so diligently on My Real Estate Exam Coach and many other videos and things, that I keep thinking, I think I've already talked about this with you guys, but I think it's just because I've been going over the material so much. But we talk about Uncle Pete. I love to use my iPad. Those of you know that. I think it's good if we can stream, and so I'll have this where I can pull it up and down, but I kind of want to be able to use the flip chart just to do a little bit of drawing here. So here we go. So we will go into the pencil apps, and I like this particular app right here. So this is another acronym, and it's called PEAT. An acronym is when we take a word and we make each letter represent another word. Now, remember, we studied in property ownership. You obtain title to property in fee simple ownership. Fee simple is the highest type of ownership you can have. Fee simple absolute. Nobody can tell you what to do with your real estate. It's yours. It has that bundle of legal rights. However, there is this person in the United States called Pete. I like to refer to him as Pete or Uncle Pete. And Pete stands for police power, eminent domain, I'm going to abbreviate that, okay? Taxation, and escheat. All of these are government. All of these are government rights that could affect your ownership. So keep in mind that you buy real estate, if there's no encumbrances and there's no restrictions or limitations, you buy it fee simple title, fee simple absolute. However, you do have Uncle Pete that can kind of step in and say, well, yes, John, I know you own that property and it's fee simple and you can do whatever you want to, but you can't run a commercial business out of that building because you're in a residential neighborhood. See that? That would be an example of police power. Zoning. Occupancy permits. I mean, literally, the city of Park Hills, where I have some rental property, I had a tenant who put a bedroom in a basement. Nice bedroom. Did pretty decent work on it. The renter moved out. The inspector came back over to look when I re-rented it, and he said, I don't ever remember a basement in down here. And I said, well, the tenant put that in. He goes, well, he never got a building permit. I said, well, I didn't have anything to do with it. He said, well, you got to tear that room out. I said, what? He said, yeah, you got to tear the room out. You didn't get a building permit. I said, I didn't put the room in. The tenant put it in. He goes, well, I don't care. You got to tear everything out. So I had to have that whole room removed in the basement. Why? Because of building codes. They fall underneath police power too. So you own your property fee simple. Nobody can tell you what to do with it except Uncle Pete, right? Now we talked about eminent domain. That's when the government takes private property for public use. Could be to put a highway in. Could be to put the Edward Jones Stadium for the St. Louis Rams who moved to Los Angeles, but no, we're still paying on it, right, in St. Louis. That's eminent domain. Then you have taxation, and that's what we're going to talk about in this chapter. That's the government's right to tax your property. Now, why do they tax your property? Well, you have services like the ambulance district, the fire department, schools, streets, the sheriff, the jail, the courthouse, all of these things that take money to operate. They figure out what the budget is to run all the county stuff that you've approved in the past or voters have approved. They figure out what it's going to take, and then they look at the valuation of all the real estate and the assessment valuation, and then they apply a tax rate, which says if we apply this tax rate based on the valuation of the real estate, it'll generate enough tax revenue to pay for all the expenses to run the county government. Okay? That's how it works in a nutshell. So taxation, the government's right to tax your property. And then escheat, that's when you die without heirs and without a will. Escheat. If that happens, your real estate goes to the state. Okay? So we're going to look at taxation. I'm going to drop this down here so we still have access to it. And that's what we talk about here. The T, taxation, is what we're going to look at here. Now, one of the things you have to know about taxation is this thing called ad valorem. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've taught real estate since 1987. I've always pronounced it that way. And if there's someone out there who's really good with phonics, let me know because they took phonics out of school when I was a kid. But ad valorem, okay? And that means according to value. According to value. What does that mean? Well, let's go back over here and take a look at this. What ad valorem basically means, I think that is OREM. There we go. And this means according to value. What this means is, let's say this is Bob, this is John, and this is Mary. Bob owns a pretty big home and it's valued at $200,000. John owns a home that's valued at $75,000. And Mary owns a great big home that's taxed at $500,000. Who will pay the more taxes in this scenario? And the answer is, good job, but I knew everybody knew that, Mary. Remember, it's according to value, ad valorem. So the higher the taxes, the higher the value, pardon me, the higher the taxes paid. So Mary will pay the most expensive tax. Who pays the least expensive tax in this? It would be John. Why? Because it's only $75,000. So ad valorem means according to value, taxes will be higher for people who own a more expensive home. And I explained that to you on this slide, and you can see that here. The more expensive the real estate you own, the more tax you will pay. So definitely going to see that on the exam. Now, we've already talked about this. We talked about this the other day in pretty lengthy detail about tax liens and priority of tax liens. Remember that real estate tax liens always take top priority at a foreclosure sale, okay? They always take top priority. And then you will be paid, and that's what that means there. Real estate tax liens take priority, okay? Then it's the cost and fees for the sale. Then it's the liens and the date and time of recording. Remember, we have the senior lien, the first mortgage, we call it the senior mortgage, and then we have junior liens. Now, sometimes people may only have one mortgage, senior lien. Sometimes I remember a gentleman who was a judge in our area, great guy, really thought a lot of him, and I don't know really what happened, but he ended up having to go to prison for some things that he had gotten involved in and done, and he's out of prison now and doing fine. In fact, I think he just wrote a book, if I remember right. And I heard, and I don't know this, that he had 5 or 6 liens on his house. And I remember the bank foreclosed and they sold it at a foreclosure sale. But you can have multiple liens. Sometimes people can have 6, 7, 8 liens. So you have a senior mortgage, and then you're going to have liens on top of that. Okay? So remember that real estate tax liens get top priority. Now, again, there's audio with all of this as you go through the course. I don't ever really want to say anything disparagingly against a competitor. because we're all in this together, but I had to take a class the other day because I have a license in Florida. And I just want to say it's refreshing that my courses, I think, have audio and video and pictures. That's all I'll say, because I think we need that. So there is audio. You can turn it off if you just want to read it. But I do explain these slides to you as we're going through them right now. So here's how the government determines the taxes. I don't think you're probably going to see this on the exam. If you do, I think you can understand and remember it in a nutshell. And basically it's this. They'll figure out what's the income that the government's going to receive, what are the expenses, how much do we need to operate the government, all the county services. Then they'll look at the assessments, all the real estate that's owned, because remember, some real estate, like churches and there's schools or some real estate that's not taxable. So they'll look at all the real estate that's taxable, and then they'll divide that, and they'll come up with a tax assessment ratio, and that's what they will apply to your assessed valuation to come up with the taxes. And we'll work some of those here in a minute. So this is just another example. Again, I'd kind of lightly look at this. I think if you know the concept, I don't think they're going to make you work this type of math problem. So I wouldn't get really too hung up on this, but just, it's there for your information. And then we've got a typical tax question here. So the tax assessment ratio for a house valued at $90,000, so I'm going to bring this back up, is 40%. So the tax assessment ratio, so that's the ratio, is 40%. The house is valued at this. If the tax rate is $3.50 per 1,000 of assessed value, what is the quarterly tax bill? Now, there's a key word there, quarterly. Not annual. Okay, so keep that in mind. So how are we going to work this? I could hit the show me button and I could show you, but we'll do this on our own here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take the 90,000. I'm going to draw my T. And we're going to take it times 0.40. It's 40%. We're going to move our decimal over 2 places. And so we're solving for part, the assessed value. Remember, part, total, rate. And so since we have the 2 bottom numbers, what does our math tell us to do? It says multiply. So I'm going to take 90,000 times 0.40, and that gives me $36,000. This is the assessed valuation. Now, if we go back to the problem, well, I can show you right here. The problem said it's $3.50 per 1,000 of assessed valuation. So 36,000 divided by 1,000, and again, notice this is just really a T problem, except, whoops, I'm trying to use my finger, and I'm using an iPad, except this would be like that. I ran out of room, but I wanted you to see that's all this is a T problem. 36 divided by 1,000 equals 36. Over in the corner there, okay? now it says it's $3.50 per 1,000. So 36 times $3.50 equals $126. We wish that's all we paid in taxes, isn't it? And now we have to divide by 4 because it wants to know what is the quarterly tax bill. It's $31.50. That's how we work that problem. So again, they're going to give you the valuation and the rate, what it's assessed at, and then they're going to give you something like the tax rate is $3.50 per 1,000 or $4 per 100, and then they're going to ask you what's the tax bill or what's the semi-annual or what's the quarterly. So don't forget that, because guess what? This would have been one of the answers. And if you got that, you might say yes. But the problem is they wanted to know what the quarterly taxes is. You can't see that. I'm showing the $126. I always do that. I forget. So again, let's just go through. Try to build in videos here. Sometimes I'll get a student who will say, tax problem 7.7, I couldn't figure out how you got that, how you work that. And basically, if you click show me, it's usually linked to a video. But it's okay if you reach out to me. That's the kind of guy I am. I'm always here to help. So, okay, I don't think you're going to see this. I give you some questions to practice through this, but you probably do need to understand what an equalization factor is. Brokers might see something like this, but it's just sometimes assessed valuations are lower, and there's just no way that even if they apply the tax rate, there's no way they can make the increase or pay the expenses needed to operate the government. So in those lower areas, they might establish what is called an equalization factor, and that just helps them to bring that up, okay? Now, understand here, this is very important, special assessments, these would be things for like sidewalks, sewers, curb and gutterings. It could be for a swimming pool. Always has to be voted on by the district or the group that it's benefiting. But special assessments are taxes. It is a tax lien. So it's going to take top priority at a foreclosure sale. They love to try to trick you on this question right here to get you to think that, oh, it's just a special assessment on the sidewalk. That's not that big of a deal. But the house, that's a big deal. No. The house, the sidewalk carry the same amount of weight, okay? Kind of like you and I. Sometimes we put all these weights on things the Bible tells us not to do, and we're like, well, you can't do that, but it's okay to do this over here. No, a special assessment and a real estate tax lien carry the same weight. And they always, both of those will take top priority at a foreclosure sale. Once the special assessment, this may be a tax or a real estate question. Once the special assessment's paid in full, then it ends, okay? So I was on city council once for a community my wife and I used to live in with our children. And, I love government politics. I mean, I don't like what's going on now, but I like to be active in that level. And we had lots of stuff like this that came up. We had people that wanted the city to always put in sidewalks and things. And I would sit there and think, I teach this in real estate school. If the neighborhood wants sidewalks, why don't they just do a special assessment and pay for a small little bit of that over 10 years? And then they have these nice sidewalks or curbs and gutterings. And in a small community, if you make that recommendation, it was like, there's absolutely no way. And they didn't like you and they would boycott your real estate office, heaven forbid you make us pay for that curb and guttering and sidewalk. You as a city should furnish that for us. Well, I get that, but you could get a lot more done in your community if people were willing to take on the special assessments, and it would be more beneficial for the local government. So I got out of politics real quick. So, but you can see here that has to be normally voted on. It ends at a certain length of time. And the other thing that's important here, and they love this on the real estate test, so keep this in mind, whoever benefits the most will pay a higher special assessment. So just like according to value, if the value of your property is more than someone else's, you're going to pay more tax. Same kind of principle works with special assessment. If you live on a corner and they're putting new sidewalks in, you benefit much more being a corner person than someone in the middle. So your special assessment will be a higher rate. So those are things that you need to remember and understand. Again, special assessments need to be voted and approved on by the public. And there's a wide range of things they could be for. Another tax example question. We could work this one here. The current market value of a property is $35,000. I'm going to put that down. For tax purposes, it is assessed at 40% of market value. So that's the value. And it's $4 per $100 of assessed value per 100. What is the amount of the tax? Okay. You're going to have one of these problems on the test, so you really need to know how to do this. So again, I'm going to put my T formula out here, put my math symbols on. I know this is total, this is part, and this is rate. So it's 35,000. I know where this goes. Now, I'm going to move my decimal over 2 places, so that's going to be 0.40. Some of you may be saying, well, how'd you know to put 35,000 down at the bottom? Well, again, this is total, the bigger number. This is part. Part's smaller than total, right? And here, we're trying to find, when we're doing these tax problems like this, we're trying to find out what's the assessed valuation. It's always going to be smaller than the value of the property. So that's why I put the 35,000 on the bottom, because it's a bigger number. And so in this example, we're solving for the assessed valuation. So 35,000 times 0.40. And why do we multiply? Because our math sign says anytime you have the 2 bottom ones, you multiply. So 35,000 times 0.40 equals 14, and we're solving for this, 14,000. Now, this next part says it's $4 per 100. So we're going to divide this by 100, and I get 140. Now, I just want you to see something here. This is just another T problem. And this time, the 14,000 is on top, or pardon me, I think that would, 14,000 divided by 100. So we don't really want to go there because that's just going to mess us up. It's per 100. So dang it, I was doing really good today and I just goofed it up, didn't I? The trolls will go crazy on YouTube there, and let them have fun if they have nothing better else to do. So 14,000 divided by 100 gives me 140. Now, it's $4 per 100 So we're going to multiply that times $4. And that is 560. And so that is our answer. And that is it. And then if we hit show me, well, you can watch how to work that right there. Okay, we've got another one here, but I'm going to wait on that because it's 4:30. I promised my lovely wife I would be done by 4:30. And actually, I think it might be better. Some days we may go an hour, but I think it might be better. You know, if we can do 30 minutes, it's tough to watch a webinar longer than that. And I've got plenty of videos on my YouTube channel. So be sure and subscribe. There are playlists there. Check those out. We'll pick up here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching. Oh, I should go out and see if we have any questions. Let me go over here very quickly and just see if we had any questions. I do not see any, but hello, Sue. Thanks for joining. And so appreciate that. But if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me. Hey, thanks for watching. Have a great evening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.